boys and girls, to chapter 13 of I, Freddy. I'd been living at Mr. John's for 5 days when Sophie reappeared for the first time. Probably because Mom had kept her too busy to come sooner. She turned up one afternoon. Mr. John was sitting at his desk, reading, and Sir William had settled down among his master's books. I was jogging on the carousel when I suddenly heard footsteps on the stairs. I raced to the door of my cage and sat up to show how much I'd been looking forward to seeing her. I fidgeted with excitement. Then it occurred to me that my fur might be tousled, so I started cleaning myself vigorously. Sir William looked over at me with a grin. There was a knock on the front door, and Mr. John went out. "Hi, kid," I heard him say. "Nice to see you." "Hello, Mr. John." That was Sophie's voice. "How's Freddy?" "Oh, he's fine, I guess. Come in and see for yourself." There she was at last. The familiar scent of sunflower seeds filled my nostrils. It was my Sophie, all right. "Freddy!" She came running over to the cage. "Hello, Freddy!" I raised one paw as high as I could, and then, casting dignity to the wind, I waved to her. She beamed. "He's saying hello! Look, Mr. John, he's waving at me." "I've never seen him do that before," said Mr. John. "He must like you a lot." That, Mr. John, was putting it mildly. "Here, Freddy, I brought you something." Sophie held up a paper bag. "Something really special." She opened the door of my cage. "My book on golden hamsters says it's a delicacy." A delicacy? Could it possibly be? She emptied the contents of the paper bag onto my feeding place. It really was a mealworm. Sitting beside my feeding place after Sophie had gone, I still couldn't take it all in. To think she'd done such a fine thing. What joy! I don't mean the mealworm itself, although naturally that had been scrumptious. No, I mean the thought that lay behind it. The fact that she had figured out what would give me a treat. A real special one. To think she'd even looked it up in her book on golden hamsters, and all for my sake. I have a blissful life. 2 more sighs, this time from the room next door. I rose on my hind legs and stiffened. "Ah, me," sighed Enrico. "A sound more wistful never reached my ears." "Yes, indeed," said Caruso. "Young Fred's a slave to passion, it appears. He's genuinely in love, from what I heard. A hamster and a little girl? Absurd. An ill-matched pair, Enrico, I agree. His love is doomed to failure, can't he see? Unless he's very careful, more's the pity. He'll wind up like a hamster in our ditty." Whereupon they broke into song once more. "His lovesick heart throbs in his breast. His little knees go weak. He waves his tiny paws at her. Ah, would that he could speak. So smiles at him and says hello, but he can only squeak." There followed the inevitable squeals of laughter, and this time they sounded positively evil. "So what?" I sat there cleaning my fur, quite relaxed, until a sudden fit of anger made me bare my teeth and snarl. How dare they? How dare those uncouth louts drag my finer feelings through the mud? If I snatched up the pencil and pried open my cage, got into their cage, and gave them a thorough nipping, I doubt if they would ever get fresh with me again. Luckily for them, Sir William was around. Okay, I told myself, just cool it. But, angry though I was, I had to hand it to them. They were on the ball, those two. The last poem had sounded really good, quite professional. Enrico and Caruso couldn't read either of them, so they must have made it up themselves. If guinea pigs could do that, making up rhymes couldn't be all that hard. What if I tried it myself? What if I fired some insulting poems back at them? That would make those jokers sit up. They would return fire, of course, and the result would be an instant war of words. But that was just what they wanted. No thanks. The pair of you, count me out. So what I had been thinking of, before they spoiled my train of thought. Of course, I could recall it now. That yummy mealworm Sophie had brought me. Good heavens, a rhyme! Thought, brought. But no, this was ridiculous. If I was going to make up a poem, I would do it properly. My poem must be a genuine poem, not just a joke, but one that put my emotions into words. I retired to my burrow and got down to it. After an hour, almost to the minute, I had, well, not made up a poem, but come to the conclusion that a golden hamster was quite incapable of doing what seemed to come naturally to a pair of uncouth guinea pigs. Every rhyme I made up sounded as if I had tried to turn the instructions on a packet of hamster food into a verse. Okay, so I couldn't make up poetry, but I could read. Why not see how the prose did it? That evening, after Sir William had opened the door of my cage, I asked him to wait while I checked the backs of the books up on the shelf. A surprising number of titles included the words poems. I eventually opted for a small, slender volume whose pages I would be able to skim through quickly, and Sir William pulled it out for me. When he had gone, I opened the book and looked for a short poem that would vividly describe my feelings. I turned the pages. It seemed to be a collection of poems by different people, but some of them were terribly long-winded. One, which went on for verse after verse, began, "In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree." I read it through from beginning to end. All very colorful and interesting, but not up my alley and far too long. I continued to turn the pages. Hey, how about this one? Only 4 lines, but they hit the nail on the head. Bingo! I had my poem. It read, "A mighty pain to love it is, and 'tis a pain that pain to miss. But of all pains the greatest pain, it is to love, but love in vain." I sat there, staring at the page and wondering, what of the future? What were my chances of expressing how I felt? Very poor. The most I could do, when Sophie came to visit, was to give her a little wave, and that was less than satisfactory. If only I could give her that poem to read. Okay, so she might not get my meaning at all. Then again, she might. In any event, I ought to give it a try. But it was no use. I couldn't write, so I couldn't make myself understood. Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. So ran another more hopeful-sounding poem in the book. Maybe the poet was right, but it wasn't much of a comfort. I decided to give up reading for the night. Sir William could replace the book and shut my cage door himself. I crawled into my burrow and curled up in its depths. How could I get to write? Something had to happen. But what? That's the end of chapter 13. See you next time for chapter 14. Bye for now.